So I decided that I would like to keep more herbs in the kitchen, both for cooking and because I think they look nice in the kitchen. And I realised that I had a lot of jars that I've been saving from chutneys and coffee and chocolate spread, and that they would make ideal little pots to keep my herbs in. So for this, all you're going to need is a selection of jars, preferably some larger ones, because I find that the herbs that you buy from the supermarket, the live herbs, are quite big and awkward, and you can kind of manipulate the roots a little bit, but it's easier if you have something slightly bigger to work with. And I also think it looks quite nice when they're all in different sizes and shapes. Gives a little bit more interest in different heights. So, other than jars, for this you will also need some twine. And this is a pretty big roll, and it only costs £2.20 something, I think, from a craft store, Hobbycraft. You'll need scissors. You will need a glue gun. And I also picked up these, pack of 3 for £1, and they're tiny little chalkboard pegs. I'm not going to write the names of the herbs on those. And non-essentially, but quite useful, I find, a nice glass of wine. Okay. So I've already done 3. I've got some basil, I've got some parsley, I've got mint here, we've not done this one yet, and I've got some rosemary. In fact, I'm going to do rosemary next because it was quite a small jar. I have 2 jars and I just split the plant in 2. So this is this one. So we're going to start by taking some of the twine. And this is just garden twine. It's really like a rustic, rough kind of string. And we're going to start by securing it just along the top edge. I'm going to do that with our glue gun. And the glue gun will dry pretty quickly, so just a little dab to start you off. And be careful with your fingers because it is really hot and I have burnt myself and it hurts. Okay. And you don't have to glue all the way around, but just like every couple of centimetres or every inch or so. Just put a little bit and secure. Just hold for a couple of seconds while it takes and holds. Press lightly and secure. You don't want to overload the glue, otherwise you get glue squirting out from the sides of the twine. I don't think squirging is a word, but there we go. I'm going with squirging. Almost there. A bit heavy on the glue there, so I'll try and spread it out with my gun. Okay, and now come back to our original point. So I'm not going to continue gluing all the way around. I'm now going to just rotate the jar, otherwise you get a bit of a tangle and a mess with the twine. Just keep wrapping that all the way around. You can put more glue on. It really depends on your preference and partly the thread of the jar. And by the thread I don't mean the twine, I mean the screw top section of the glass. Some of them can be a bit of a weird pattern and a bit tricky to keep the string on properly, so you might want to use extra glue. And I'm just going to keep wrapping that around because you get gaps, and I don't want gaps, so I want the whole thing to be filled. And it doesn't need to be neat because this is a real rustic thing. I think I filled in all the gaps, so I'm going to find myself a point to end at. That looks good. I'm going to cut that, and we will secure the end with a glue. Don't need a whole lot, just enough. Okay. Very carefully tap that. You don't want to get the hot glue on your fingers. If you do get it on and you don't burn yourself, it's not the end of the world because it does just roll off. Okay. If you get excess bits of glue, like you might get stringy bits, they just pull right off. Okay, so that's our string. Now, I realise I've kind of skipped ahead a little bit and didn't show you putting the plants in, but it's pretty self-explanatory. You take the plants out of the little pots they come in from the supermarket or the garden centre, wherever you buy your herbs from. They'll be quite tightly potted usually, so you need to loosen the roots off. You may want to put a little bit of gravel in the bottom just for drainage, and then put some of the soil that comes around the roots, put that in first. You need to sort of shape the roots a little bit because some of the jars, particularly like this mint one, that was fun. Yeah, you need to really work on making that narrow. This is also a bit of an experiment to see how well these herbs last in these jars. I've put them in other things before and they've been fine, especially the rosemary. The rosemary lasts really well, so if you're finding stuff like the basil or the parsley wilts, which I find it does, then the rosemary is a good one to go with because that really is pretty tough stuff, and it can go without water for a little bit longer, and stand up to general abuse a bit better. Okay, so I've taken my little mini chalkboard pegs and I've taken some chalk and I've just written the names of each of the herbs, and I'm going to pop these into the individual pots. Incidentally, I bought these from the Works. It was £1 for 3 and it was in the craft and DIY wedding section. So we have one, and we have another rosemary, and we have some mint. I love the smell of. And we have some basil. Find a good spot for that. There we go. And finally we have some parsley. I think they look pretty cool. And the finished product sitting pretty in my kitchen. Cheers!